Welcome to our video on Vasco da Gama's incredible journey to India, one of the most important voyages in the history of exploration. Vasco da Gama was a Portuguese navigator who sailed from Lisbon in 1497 in search of a new sea route to India, one of the most important centers of trade and commerce in the world at that time. Early life. Vasco da Gama was born in Sines, Portugal in 1469, into a family of explorers and navigators. His father was a courtier for King John II of Portugal, and he grew up with a deep love for the sea and exploration. As a young man, he joined the Portuguese Navy, where he quickly gained a reputation as a skilled navigator and seafarer. Journey to India. In 1497, King Manuel I of Portugal commissioned Vasco da Gama to lead an expedition to India, with the goal of establishing direct trade relations with Indian merchants. At the time, the only way to reach India was to travel overland, which was dangerous and time-consuming. Vasco da Gama set sail from Lisbon in July 1497, with 4 ships and a crew of over 170 men. His journey would take him down the west coast of Africa, across the Indian Ocean, and finally to the shores of India. The journey down the African coast. Vasco da Gama's first challenge was to navigate down the west coast of Africa. The Portuguese had already established several trading posts along the coast, but Vasco da Gama was the first navigator to attempt to sail all the way to India. As the ships sailed south, they encountered fierce storms, strong currents, and hostile African tribes. Many of the crew members fell sick and died from diseases such as scurvy. The ships were also damaged, and repairs had to be made along the way. The East African coast. After several months of sailing, Vasco da Gama and his crew finally reached the east coast of Africa. They anchored in the port of Malindi, in present-day Kenya, where they met with the local ruler, who provided them with valuable information about the Indian Ocean and the winds and currents that they would encounter on their journey to India. From Malindi, Vasco da Gama set sail across the Indian Ocean, navigating through the treacherous waters of the Arabian Sea. His journey was marked by many challenges, including attacks by pirates and storms that nearly sank his ships. But he persevered, and finally reached the port of Calicut, in present-day Kerala, India in May 1498. Encounters in India. When Vasco da Gama arrived in India, he was met with suspicion and hostility from the locals, who were wary of the Portuguese and their intentions. The ruler of Calicut, the Zamorin, refused to meet with him, and he was forced to establish trade relations with local merchants on his own. Despite these challenges, Vasco da Gama managed to secure valuable spices and other goods to bring back to Portugal. He also left behind a small group of Portuguese traders, who would establish the first European trading post in India. The journey back. Vasco da Gama's journey back to Portugal was no less challenging than his journey to India. He was attacked by pirates and forced to seek refuge in Mozambique, where he established a Portuguese trading post. His ships were also damaged, and he had to make repairs along the way. He finally arrived back in Lisbon in September 1499, where he was hailed as a hero for his successful voyage to India. His journey had opened up a new sea route to India and forever changed the course of world history. The Portuguese were able to establish trade relations with India, which led to a great increase in wealth and power for Portugal. They also began to establish colonies in India and other parts of the world, which would have a lasting impact on global politics and economics. Legacy of Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama's journey to India was a remarkable achievement in the history of exploration. It paved the way for other European nations to establish trade relations with India and other parts of Asia, and opened up new possibilities for global commerce. At the same time, the legacy of Vasco da Gama's journey is complex. The Portuguese and other European powers would go on to colonize many parts of the world, including India, which led to the exploitation and suffering of millions of people. Conclusion. In the end, Vasco da Gama's journey to India remains a fascinating and inspiring story of human exploration and adventure. It is a reminder of the incredible feats that humans can accomplish when they set their minds to it, and the lasting impact that these feats can have on the world around us. You're welcome. I'm glad I could assist you with your request. If you have any more questions or need any further assistance, don't hesitate to ask.